Good morning, everybody. I opened up the wrong room. That's crazy. Too many Zoom rooms now. 1 second. Am I on mute? No, you're on mute. I can't hear you. 1 second.
I see you and hear you. And I've
Oh.
just got to tell you how marvelous your services were.
Oh, thank you.
By far better than anything. And I was watching about 4 or 5 of them.
Thank you. Well, that's high praise because I know you were. So.
Oh, you touched me. And
thank you.
Your Yisker, I don't know why my eyes went to my families. You scrolled fast, but somehow they jumped out at me.
Well, it was hard because we probably took a song that was too short, the Esai and I, Psalm 121, but it was a really beautiful one, and we probably should have used a little bit of a longer song, which we could have, but yeah, and it's hard because we had errors, and we tried to correct everything, and most of them got corrected, but we were correct. That was the last piece. The Yisker service was the last piece that got done because we were adding photos, and interestingly, we didn't get as many photos as we thought we would get. So for those who haven't seen it, it's posted up. We posted up the Yisker song and we posted up the Yisker service for everybody. So it is up there. We didn't post everything, but we posted what we did. Give me 1 second, people. Hold on 1 second.
Rabbi, you're not connected too well.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, give me 1 sec. Well, hopefully this will work now. I'm not sure. I have my my iPad by my side in case it doesn't. So we did have a technical issue, as some of you know who were on the Neila service. It was the only technical glitch we had, and of course it was because we were live, and we did not have the safety net of going to a tape. So it was. This year will be known as the year of technology, and we were lucky that the other stuff worked pretty well. Well, it had to because it was pre-recorded, and it was just a question of whether the sites would stay up and everything else. So definitely different, and definitely not what we expected to be doing last year, but we did our best. And I think
you're hardwired, Rabbi?
I am. I'm hardwired, and I
really.
Yeah,
because down the bottom it tells you how good you're doing. You're going from good to medium to bad.
Okay,
it keeps going in and out.
I don't know.
That's just really weird if you're hardwired.
Yeah,
it shouldn't happen.
It could be that my daughter's on, my wife's on. We have a lot of.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you're hardwired, it shouldn't matter.
I know.
Hi, everybody.
She's going.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
All right, we just posted it. We're posting on live. We got a few more people that were admitting. We have a short class today. We have a very short time today with everybody. I apologize, but I've got, we almost didn't have class today, but I wanted to have a little bit after post Yom Kippur. I wanted to get off on the right start, but, I'm going to defer to people on Torah study tomorrow night. Mike Schwartz actually suggested that maybe we should watch the Dodger game. It is exactly at 7 o'clock. So, Mike, I don't mind taking a week off, but it's up to you. What do you think?
We shouldn't really cancel class for the Dodger game, Rabbi.
Okay.
I'll be watching it, by the way. But and I'll give you the scores. But
all right. Well, we'll talk about it. If you're actually going to be on, but you said you're not going to be. You're going to be paying attention to the game.
Oh no, I'll be paying attention to you, Rabbi.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll be here.
Jeff Stein doesn't have to worry about that because he doesn't come Wednesday nights. But in Colorado, he'll be definitely watching the Dodger game.
Dodgers, yeah.
Yeah, Dodgers, definitely. He doesn't have to think about that twice. I'm just looking around, and we have, but I did want to kind of get back onto the regular schedule. Um, Folks, by the way, I do want to point out, and I mentioned it at services, we have all the candidates for Assembly and Senate are going to be with us for Sukkot. They're coming each one's coming a different day. October 5th on Monday is next Monday is Kip Mueller, who's running for the Senate. And again, I think people thought, kind of before that he was kind of a sacrificial lamb, but don't count him out. He's a young guy from Sacramento. He is a very smart, very intelligent guy. And he also happens, by the way, to be Jewish. Most people don't know that because his name is Kip Mueller. Not exactly a very Jewish sounding name, but he is Jewish, was raised Jewish, was bar mitzvah at Congregation B'nai Israel in Sacramento. And you'll have a chance to meet him. And I'd like you to meet him and all the candidates who are running every week, every night, 6 o'clock during Sukkot. So starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 o'clock on our Zoom. Same address every night. And that's, it's a nice Sukkot thing to do, to invite guests to our Sukkah. So again, please join, and you can ask questions. It's not just me being there. It's you asking questions and having a chance to be engaged. Again, we want everybody to vote, but we'd also like people to know who they're voting for and what's going on. So, and by the way, you're going to see today, if you look on our Facebook page, a holiday message from Mike Garcia. People asked why. He's our sitting congressman. Any politician from any party who sends us a holiday message, we're going to post up. I know we're in a time when people don't want to hear from anybody they don't like or any party they don't like, but I promise you, anybody from any party who's running or who's already been elected, if they write a message, we definitely share it and want people to see it. So, okay. So don't think it's like like we're showing partisanship or favoritism. So anyways, again, I'm sure people are going to say stuff about it, but again, it's always been our policy. If someone wants to wish a Happy New Year. All right, folks. So we don't have Judith today because Judith is doing some stuff with family today. She told me yesterday she's not going to be here, and Rosemary's not here either. Does somebody else?
I am here.
Oh, Rosemary is?
I am
Where are
here.
you, Rosemary?
I'm on my iPad.
iPad. Are you iPad 5?
I'm iPad 5 because I busted my computer. I won't have it back until next week.
All right. Well, then we'll
So
have
the question
you read
is, am I going to be able to see the screen when you put it up? If I can, then I'll read.
Let's see that. Again, we're going to just we're going to have about a half hour this morning, unfortunately,
Okay.
but I didn't want to not have any time today to study. And I thought it was important to start the year right. So let's see if this works. This is the Midrash of Joseph. Died last week. Unfortunately, he died before his brothers, and we read about his death and his burial, his temporary burial, his first internment, because he's going to be buried eventually in the Holy Land. But first, he's buried there. Rosemary, can you see it?
I can. Well, I could a minute ago. Now I can't.
You're going to in 1 sec. Got it?
Yes, I can see from God spake to the tribe at the top down to he bestowed the Torah upon Israel.
Perfect. So we're starting in the yellow part, which is the sons
Okay.
of Jacob. So we're going to read about the death of these sons. And this is based primarily on a collection of writings called the Testaments of the 12 Tribes, which is an apocryphal book. It's in the Pseudepigrapha collection. It's written by Jews, but it's not in mainline Midrash. So you're going to see some things that are sound a little strange, and that's because it was written during a definitely Greek influenced period and has occasionally a couple of mythological, not Jewish mythological tendencies. So let's read.
Okay. The sons of Jacob, significant names. Jacob raised all his sons in the fear of God and taught them the ways of a pious life, using severity when there was need to make his lessons impressive. He reaped the fruits of his labor, for all his sons were godly men of stainless character. The ancestors of the 12 tribes resembled their fathers in piety, and their acts were no less significant than those of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Like these three, they deserve to be called the fathers of Israel. God made a covenant with them as he had made with the three patriarchs, and to this covenant, their descendants owe their preservation.
Right. And remember, we don't talk about being the descendants of Joseph and Judah and all these other people. We say Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And again, so there is this question, why don't we talk about, why, at what point do we stop talking about patriarchs? And again, it's kind of like, well, by this point, this line is all the sons of Jacob are going to be okay. And this is one of the things that, again, that we kind of forget, is that Abraham and Isaac both had children who didn't become part of the covenantal people, but all of Jacob's sons do. And so this is kind of what makes Jacob the last patriarch we mentioned, because he was able to get all his kids across the threshold, if you will. Doesn't mean all of them do good things, as we're going to see again, or we know, and this is going to remind us of that. We're going to read through Reuben, especially Reuben. They screw up, but they're all part of the covenant. They're all part of the people of Israel. So here we go. They're united for however you want to describe it. They decide we're one group. Okay.
The very names of the tribes point to the redemption of Israel. Reuben is so because God sees the affliction of his people. Shimon, because he hears its groaning. Levi, he joins himself unto his people when Israel suffers. Judah, Israel will thank God for its deliverance. Issachar, it will be rewarded for its suffering with a recompense. Zebulun, God will have a dwelling place in Israel. Benjamin, he swore by his right hand to succor his people. Dan, he will judge the nation that subjugates Israel. Naphtali, he bestowed the Torah upon Israel, and she dropped sweetness like honeycomb. Gad, Lord to Israel, and it was like coriander seed. Asher, all nations will call Israel happy. And Joseph, because God will add a second redemption of Israel to the first. Redemption from the wicked kingdom at the end, as from Egypt in former times. Not only the names of Jacob's sons are significant.
Well, hold it right there. Wait 1 second before we go on. So all of them, and again, I know my connection isn't great, which again, thankfully, it's not going to be 2 hours of unstable connection. I'm unstable, but now my connection's unstable too. But no, the important thing here is that there's plays on every one of the names, right? The crazy thing is that we actually have in the Bible why these people have names. But here we have a midrash that gives them their names mean something else. And these names are connected more towards what happens to the tribes and their place within the tribal confederation than the original names that their mother and father, or mothers, I should say, and father gave them. Really, their mothers are the ones who named them. But again, when Jacob's kids are born, they all get names, and we're told what those names mean. But here we get another version of what those names mean. And again, what's really interesting about them is that they have to do with the future events of what happens to their families. And even to the extent that Joseph, it says right here that Joseph's name isn't, again, it means to add to, but what they said is it actually adds to the Messiah. Just like there was a Redeemer that took us out of Egypt, there will be a Redeemer who will defeat the wicked kingdom, meaning the Romans. And so what it's telling us is that expect there to be a second Redeemer like Moses, a Messiah, and that is Joseph. And that's what Joseph represents. And even more so, something we talked about before, there's a tradition that descendant of Joseph is actually called the Messiah, the son of Joseph. That Joseph, there is a Redeemer, a Messiah that comes from from Joseph's line. So in addition to being a Moshiach ben David, a Messiah, the son of David, there's also has to be a Messiah, the son of Joseph, either from Ephraim or Manasseh, that there'll be another Messiah from that line as well. So it's interesting that, again, that they inserted here this idea of a Messiah, another Messiah coming, or actually, again, a Messiah coming during the Roman period, and that Messiah will be a descendant of Joseph. All right. Laolo, continue. Yep.
Okay. Not only the names of Jacob's sons are significant, but the names of their sons as well. Thus, the names of the sons of Issachar express the activities of the tribe known for its learning above all others. The oldest was called Tola, worm, as the silkworm is distinguished for its mouth with which it spins. So also the men of the tribe of Issachar for the wise words of their mouth. The second is Pua, madder plant. As this plant colors all things, so the tribe of Issachar colors the whole world with its teaching. The third is Jashub, the returning one. For through the teaching of Issachar, Israel will be turned back to its heavenly Father. And Shimron, the fourth, is the observing one, to indicate that the tribe of Issachar observes the Torah.
So those are, it's a reminder that it's not just the sons, but the grandsons of Jacob that will also have meaning for the time, for the future. Okay.
The names of the sons of Gad likewise interpret the history of the tribe. During Israel's sojourn in Egypt, it had strayed from the right path. But when Aaron appeared as prophet and monitor and called to the Israelites to cast away the abominations of their eyes and forsake the idols of Egypt, they hearkened to his words. Hence the double name Ozni and Ezbon, born by one of the sons of Gad. For this tribe hearkened to the word of God and fulfilled his will. The grandsons of Asher bear the names Heber and Malchiel because they were the associates of kings and their inheritance yielded royal dainties. Partly, the history of the tribe of Benjamin can be read in the names of its chiefs. It consisted originally of 10 divisions descended from Benjamin's 10 sons, but 5 of them perished in Egypt on account of their ungodly ways, from which no admonition availed to turn them aside. Of the 5 families remaining, 2, the descendants of Bela and those of Ashbel, had always been God-fearing. The others, the Ahiramites, the Shehuphamites, and the Huphamites, repented of their sins, and in accordance with the change in their conduct, had been the change in their name. Ahai had become Ahiram because the breach with the exalted one was healed. Mupira was called Shephutham because they afflicted themselves in their penance, and Hupim was turned into Hupham to indicate they had cleansed themselves from sin. As a reward for their piety, the family springing from Bela was permitted to have 2 subdivisions, the Ardites and the Naamites. Their names point them out as men that know well how the fear of God is to be manifested, whose deeds are exceedingly lovely.
So again, part of the reason why we have this is because the Bible sometimes gives slightly different accounts of whose kids, the names of the grandkids. And so here, for example, we have a tradition that in one version of the tribes we have a son whose name is of Manasseh. That's named, or excuse me, Benjamin. That one of them is named Ahiram. In another place, he's called Echi, and here it says, well, his name got changed. And so there is explanations for why we have different names in some versions. So this midrash is really explaining why we have different names for some of the grandsons. Okay.
Naphtali was another tribe of steadfast piety, and the names of his sons testified thereto. Jaziel, because of the tribesmen raised a partition wall between God and the idols, inasmuch as they trusted in God and condemned the idols. Guni, because God was their protection. And Jezer and Shilem designate the Naphtalites as men devoted to God with all their hearts.
Right. So that is again some of the names of the grandkids of Jacob. But I wanted to really get to this, which is Reuben. What happens to Reuben? The Bible doesn't tell us what happens to any of the other children when they die. We just don't have them. which is why in the Midrash, and again, specifically this Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, we have a moment where each of we have a version of a goodbye farewell from each of the other 12 patriarchs. Each of those, well, Joseph, as I said, kind of gives a little bit of a command to the people, to his descendants, bury me back in Israel, but it's not a lot, and it's not like Jacob. And so, or again, we wanted more. And so this is, we're going to read through the first one, which is Reuben's, which is an interesting one, because remember, Reuben in the Bible, we read about how he sleeps with his stepmother, if you will, Bilhah, his father's concubine. Well, that looms over Reuben for the rest of his life. And here in the Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs, we actually have an explanation for how Reuben fixed this. How did he fix this sin that he had done with his father? It's a pretty serious thing. Well, we know he doesn't get inheritance. He doesn't get the prime inheritance. It goes to Joseph. That story kind of explains the Bilhah story explains that. But now we're going to get like the backstory and the after story of what happens after this sin that he commits. So here's Reuben looking back and telling us his story.
Reuben's testament. 2 years after the death of Joseph, Reuben fell sick. Feeling that his end was nigh, he called together his sons, his grandsons, and his brothers to give them his last admonitions from out of the fullness of his experience. He spoke, "Hear, my brothers, and do you, my children, give ear unto Reuben your father in the commands that I enjoin upon you. And behold, I adjure you this day by the God of heaven that you walk not in the follies of youth and the fornications to which I was addicted, and wherewith I defiled the bed of my father Jacob. For I tell you now that for 7 months the Lord afflicted my loins with a terrible plague, and if my father Jacob had not interceded for me, the Lord had swept me away. I was 20 years of age when I did what was evil before the Lord, and for 7 months I was sick unto death." Lost it. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I don't know how I know.
Okay, I'll find my place again. I was sick unto death. Then I did penance for 7 years in the innermost depths of my soul. Wine and strong drink I drank not, the flesh of animals passed not my lips, dainties I tasted not, because I mourned over my sins, for they were great. He admonished those.
One second. So let's explain. So the Bible doesn't really tell us much of what happened other than his father curses him for doing this. This Midrash here tells us some important information, that he actually gets a disease in that region afterwards, which seems strange given that he only, well, maybe he didn't just sleep with Bilhah, but it is poetic that that's where he gets afflicted with.
Or maybe Bilhah was messing around with other people.
Maybe. They don't go there, but it's more like God punishes him with it. I mean, it says the Lord afflicted him. So
they didn't get contagious.
She didn't get it. She didn't give it to him. God gave it to him.
Right.
And he has to go through a period of reflection and repentance, and it goes on for a long time, as you can see. 7 years of is a full cycle of punishment, and his father finally intercedes for him. So Jacob actually intercedes for him, and so when he's looking back on his life, he says, "Look, kids, don't make the mistakes that I made. Learn from my mistakes. Learn from my wild ways, and don't do the same thing." Right? Let's read what he says.
He admonished those gathered around him to beware of the 7 tempter spirits, which are the spirit of fornication, gluttony, strife, love of admiration, arrogance, falsehood, and injustice. Pause
right there.
So how does that compare to the 7 deadly sins?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Well, we have Reverend Lynn. You're on the line. How does that differ from the 7 deadly sins? Not that you know them. I'm not saying you're you're responsible for them.
I have no idea.
Those are not the 7 deadly sins that we have in the.
No, they're not. But I don't recall them.
Christian
Actually.
teachings. I will tell you what they are: pride, greed, wrath. And I don't know these by heart, by the way. I'm looking them up. I'm only guilty.
Thank you.
I'm only guilty of a few of them: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Okay, so those
That's
are the 7 deadly sins. As you can see, we have a different version of them in Judaism, or this, and I'd say Judaism, and this version of the story here, this version. But again, even the fact that there are listed 7 tells us again.
I was going to say that. That's
yeah. So
just the fact that there's 7.
yeah, and we don't have a list of these in the Torah, and we don't have a list of them. So the Christians didn't necessarily get them from Christianity, but there were Greek philosophers like Aristotle and other people who gave lists of virtues and things like that. And the speculation is that all of this comes from the Greeks. So the Jewish version of it, the Christian version of it, definitely comes to us probably from the Greeks. And the earliest place we have it listed is from the 4th century monk Evagrius Ponticus, who listed he listed them in Greek. So and it was a slightly different list, but he was born in he lived in Turkey, which at the time was a pretty important site for Christianity. So Middle East, but definitely Greco-Roman influence. So again, sounds very Greek. As I said, this is a very Greek section, the Testaments of the Patriarchs. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay. He cautioned them especially against unchastity, saying, "Pay no heed to the glances of a woman, and remain not alone with a married woman, and do not occupy yourselves with the affairs of women. Had I not seen Bilhah bathe in a secluded spot, I had not fallen into the great sin I committed. For after my thoughts had once grasped the nakedness of woman, I could not sleep until I had accomplished the abominable deed. For when our father Jacob went to his father Isaac, while we sojourned in Eder, not far from Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, Bilhah was drunken with wine, and she lay asleep, uncovered in her bedchamber. And I entered in and saw her nakedness, and committed the sin, and I went out again, leaving her asleep. But an angel of God revealed my impious act to my father Jacob at once. He came back and mourned over me, and never again did he approach Bilhah. Unto the very last day of his life, I had not the assurance to look my father in the face, or to speak to my brothers regarding my disgrace. And even now my conscience tortures me on account of my sin. Nevertheless, my father spoke words of comfort to me, and prayed to God on my behalf, that the wrath of the Lord might depart from me, as he showed me."
Now, let's just
Well, the
discuss this.
origin of all this, of course, is women.
Yes.
Mhm.
But
There's still
again,
people today that want to be alone with, a man shouldn't be alone with a married woman. That's
right.
not as
So again, in traditional Judaism, this
Especially if
was
you're the
not.
vice president.
This was
Right.
yeah. You didn't put yourself into this situation. Look, I mean, again, while it definitely says that, the problem is that you get lured. You're lured by the women. She didn't do anything wrong. She was sleeping. So it does remind us that men can't control themselves. And so because of that, don't put yourself in a situation like that. I will tell you, I think we're maybe also I don't want to miss this point. Based on what we just read, he didn't actually sleep with Bilhah. He didn't sleep with her. He did something bad by most standards of behavior, but not that far as, again, you might think, how could he ever look at his father? How could he ever look at his father again if he actually had intercourse with her? What the Midrash basically just said, which again, we have other Midrashim, we read them a few months ago. that he didn't actually sleep with her at all. He just literally moved her bed, because it says in the Bible, literally his father's bed, which they said he moved Bilhah's bed out so that his mother Leah could sleep with Jacob, which is like even more of a whitewashing. Here, the whitewash is that he literally stood there. And again, I don't want to get into too much description, but he essentially pleasured himself while he was looking at his stepmother, his father's wife, his father's concubine. He does this while she's sleeping, and he pleasures himself while he looks at her. That's what the Midrash basically just said he did. Again, probably is more of a reflection of the Greco-Roman influence than the Torah or Jewish tradition, but it's serious. It's a serious issue.
But Rabbi, also, like the typical male, he blames the woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he definitely does. But here's the thing. He could have gotten away with it if the angel hadn't told his father what had happened. So he the Midrash tells us that he got caught by an angel. So it's not like she told somebody or she even knew. She didn't even know. So, it's again, men don't have any power over themselves when they see a woman, and they shouldn't be around women. Like, that the best way is just not to be in that situation. It's pretty wild, folks. All right, we're going to finish up with these paragraphs, and then we got to wrap it up. But this is Reuben. This is the first son, and it is pretty heavy duty. Here we go.
Reuben admonished his children impressively to join themselves to Levi, because he will know the law of the Lord, he said, and he will give ordinances for judgment and bring sacrifices for all Israel until the consummation of the times, as the anointed high priest of whom the Lord spoke. After announcing his last will to his sons, Reuben departed this life at the age of 125 years. His body was laid in a coffin until his sons bore it away from Egypt and carried it up to Hebron, where they buried it in the double cave.
So according to this, they buried him in cave of Machpelah as well. Again, this tradition that the sons also got buried in Israel, it's here, but we don't have it in the Bible. We don't know where the Bible doesn't tell us where they're buried. It says that Joseph was buried there in Shechem, not in Machpelah. So it's interesting here that they buried it, and it doesn't say when, but again, assumedly as when they left. Folks, he lives longer than Joseph. He outlives Joseph, his younger brother, and he tells his kids, you know what? Attach yourself to the Levites, because they are going to be around forever. He doesn't say attach them to Judah, but he says to the Levites. And so, assumedly, some of maybe the Reubenites survived, and we don't know. I mean, we don't have any record of them, and we don't know, what happens to the tribe of Reuben after, the destruction of the north. But, folks, we will see you next week. Again, have a great new year. Please join us at some point during the next few days for either Shabbat services for Sukkot, but also for the week of Sukkot. It's not going to be the same not having you in the Sukkah. We have 2 more spaces. My wife wanted me to remind everybody again, we have only literally 2 more spaces for the wine and cheese, which is also virtual, and will be on Sunday night, the 4th. So everybody, stay well, stay safe, and stay positive, but not COVID positive, as we say.
You too. Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.